Oh, space shuttle! Yay! Gigantic. Oh.
And not quite 2 hours ago, we landed a moon mission in the Pacific Ocean. From before you heard this thing. Usually I can reload jokes and then it's different people every time, but you're a repeat customer. But that is a Saturn V rocket for all of us and me. And here we go, checking out how we did it 50 years ago. But I'll tie in how we're going to do it again soon. So we've got these Artemis missions coming up. We named these programs after mythology. Apollo flew to the moon 50 years ago, and Artemis is the sister of Apollo. So it's a very clever name. We gave this a feminine name intentionally. Women and men will fly to the moon. People of color will launch to the moon from these launch pads right out here. People of different nationalities will be going to the moon like a year or two from now, because we just completed the big dress rehearsal working toward this new mission. And so it's just a fantastic time to visit Kennedy Space Center. You've got a front row seat to check up on our progress whenever you want, and hopefully it'll happen a little sooner than one might think. That's good stuff. But 50 years ago, we had 3 astronauts inside a command module, just like this. The shiny silver thing on the left side, that little cone, would be your home on your round trip to the moon. You and 2 other friends inside there for over a week. So you want to go? No. Yes, no, maybe. You got a good view out the window. It's a really good view. There's the tiny little wind moon in just maybe a year or 2 from now. But that command module rides on top of the rocket. The pointy end is that way. And we'll go down there in a minute. But we put the astronauts far away from the engines because it gets pretty dramatic back here. These are F1 rocket engines. It was a seismic event when we launched this thing 50 years ago. It was so loud, windows broke in town 15 miles away. If you were here, it would feel like an earthquake. You would be shouting encouragement at the rocket, and you wouldn't be able to hear your voice coming out of your mouth. It was so loud. We burn a lot of fuel, burn about 15 tons of propellant every second. So let's walk down the fuel tank. Follow me this way.
Let's go, Rain. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go, Rain.
I always point out this painting. You see the signature right there. This was painted by somebody named Alan Bean. He just so happens to be the 4th guy to walk on the moon. That's how he paid the bills in retirement. It's pretty good. He did something no other artist has done so far. So no astronaut is gifted moon rocks. If you walk on the moon, nobody's going to give you the rocks he picked up. But they did get to keep a few souvenirs, and Al was able to keep a sample bag that he had filled rocks with previously on the moon. And it dawned on him one day how special it was that the bag was all dirty with moon dirt. It's like the most valuable dirt any place, you know? So he started cutting the fabric and mixing the dirt up with the paint. So that's an original, it's not a print, and it's one of the only works in the world with moon dust mixed in the paint. And so it's real, just like the rocket, it's real stuff. The fantasy's 50 miles that way, this is reality. Yeah, welcome. The body of a rocket is a big fuel tank, essentially. I mean, rockets are almost completely fueled by weight. So you have these 2 big tanks above us that carry liquid oxygen and kerosene. And we burn through all of this in 2.5 minutes. Wow. Yeah, and guess what? We're not even in space yet. So we toss our first stage. It crashes in the Atlantic Ocean. And so no kidding, there's 13 of those on the bottom of the ocean right now. So let's get some scuba gear, we're going after the tour, okay? I wish. But that means this rocket here never flew. This, if we needed one more, a lot of this hardware was next in line to go. So there's just a few precious leftovers in the museum. Most of these are on the bottom of the ocean, because we launched most of them. But at that point, you got to keep pushing. You got to make it to Earth orbit. So the second stage takes over. Let's check that out next.
Whoa.
You've got a second stage here, and this is a beautiful work of art, just like the painting we looked at, because we switched to a different fuel here, and the fuel is really hard to work with. We moved from kerosene fuel to hydrogen fuel. So it gives you a lot more efficiency, but nothing about using hydrogen is easy. And so these J2 engines are beautiful engines. The engineering that was done to support this engine more than a half century ago is sort of spilled into the next design. Rocket engines have family trees, just like you. So the children of this engine powered our space shuttle, and today power our new moon rocket. Flying under Project Artemis, we have a rocket called the Space Launch System, and its maiden voyage happened just a few weeks ago from the launch pads that you see over your right shoulder out the window. So the sun is shining on launch pad 39B out there, and you can visit the back lawn later. I mean, you're visiting Florida during the 2 weeks of comfortable weather that we have. So good timing on your trip.
Yes.
But yeah, check out the launch pads out back. And maybe next time we launch a moon rocket, come out and check it out from our viewing area, because it'll be an emotional experience you'll never forget. It's awesome. But like I said, the J2 engines are beautiful. And there's another J2 engine just like that on our third stage. So let's check it out.
Real cool.
It's real rockets also. Nice to know.
Or real J2.
And then another J2, yeah.
Third stage.
Third stage of the rocket.
Yeah, just one engine now. We've thrown away big parts of the rocket, so
See,
we're
this one has
more efficient. Only need one engine to push us out toward the moon. So this engine, I think it has the most impressive job of all these engines here, because this is the one that kicked the astronauts from Earth orbit out toward the moon. So we've sent almost 700 astronauts into space, and almost all of them have orbited the Earth. They're just a couple hundred miles up, going around the planet. And if you're on the International Space Station doing that, there's 7 people there right now, and they can look out the window, and framed in the window they see an entire continent, which is an emotional thing to see. You know, there's your home continent in one view, coast to coast, right? But it gets so much more emotional if you ride that engine out to the moon, because the Earth is so small in the window at that point. You can hold your thumb up and hide the entire planet Earth under your thumb, and all the world's problems under your thumb, which is awesome. Only 24 people have had that view so far, and every one of them was pushed out to the moon with an engine just like that. That view really shook things up in a good way, and I can't wait to see what happens when we get that view again in just a couple years, maybe less than 2 years now. But 50 years ago, we suddenly saw the Earth as it truly is. We live on this beautiful gem, just hanging in the stark blackness of space. And a few of the astronauts came home saying the word fragile. They said, "Oh, it looks so fragile but beautiful out there." And immediately after the moon missions, another government agency popped up. NASA, we're a government agency. Another one popped up called the Environmental Protection Agency. Their job is to keep this beautiful planet safe for your kids and your grandkids. And I think this little engine helped the timeline move a lot quicker with this environmental movement that we have today. So, that's what I think of when I look at that engine. And I wish I could have joined one of those moon missions 50 years ago. If I had to pick one, I bet you and we'd pick one of the missions that had the little car. The last 3 missions had a little car driving around on the surface of the moon. This is a lunar rover, all electric, battery powered. Doesn't go quite as fast as a Tesla, but it's like golf cart speed. It's like a little electric golf cart on the moon. And the first 3 moon landings did not have the luxury of the rover. They were hiking across the moon wearing a big, bulky, stiff spacesuit, just like the one in the case right there. That's a training suit there. But we actually have a real moon suit that Alan Shepard wore walking around on the moon in the vault over your left shoulder. Inside there, we also have the Apollo 14 spacecraft which is also an emotional thing to see because it took a round trip of the moon and brought 3 people home safely, which is awesome. But Apollo 14 did not have a rover. They picked up the rovers on Apollo 15, and we brought 3 of those to the moon. They helped us pick up more moon rocks and do more exploring. We brought the moon rocks home, but we left the little cars. Can you believe that? There's 3 perfectly good little electric cars sitting on the moon. You know, they're 50 years old, but they have low miles. Only one owner, one previous owner. So if you're in the market for a used car, let me know at the end of the tour, okay? We'll hook it up. We brought the rovers to the moon strapped to the side of the lunar module. So let's check it out. We'll finish up over here. This is a lunar module. It's sort of a strange-looking flying machine, but it's one of the best, one of the strongest flying machines humanity's ever come up with. This brings 2 astronauts for a nice soft landing on the surface of the moon. Easier said than done. It's a strange-looking machine. Somebody told me right here, somebody said, it looks like a science fair project gone wrong. It kind of does, because it was the first spacecraft that didn't have to fly through the atmosphere. You know, these airplanes, these rockets that we launch out here, they have to be sleek and aerodynamic because they punch through the atmosphere. But there's no atmosphere around the moon. We could shape this however we wanted, and the name of the game here was making it very lightweight. So we have a strong skeleton, but over that we were wrapping the materials around. These insulated materials look a little bit flimsy, but it is a very strong spacecraft underneath. You know, we made 6 good landings on the moon with these, and this one was prepared to go to the moon for Apollo 15. This is real. This was flight-worthy 50 years ago. But it's an early version that could not carry the little rover that we just looked at, so a different one went on the Apollo 15 mission. And I'm really glad to have it because there's only 2 flight-worthy lunar modules in museums. The other one is up with Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. It's a great museum. So there's more of these on the moon than there are on Earth. It's really cool to get to show it to you. And there's a lot of special stuff in here that you don't want to miss. Like I said, go to that vault behind you, behind the rover. You'll see Apollo 14. It's one of the great successes of Apollo. You know, we had 9 trips back and forth to the moon, and everyone came home safely. But the real reason that everyone came home in one piece was because of the sacrifice of the Apollo 1 crew. So if you did that show, I think you probably did that show earlier, they mentioned Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. These 3 people were inside their spacecraft for a test a few weeks before their launch, and a fire happened in their capsule. It was the worst day of the Apollo program, but we realized it was a moment to learn, get back in the saddle, and make improvements. We took almost a year off of flying, made over 1,000 changes to that capsule so that every person that followed them inside that capsule was safe. So Apollo 1 was the most important Apollo mission. Even though it didn't get off the pad, it was still the most important. And we have a beautiful memorial for those 3 gentlemen over here in the corner. When you go through, just know their 3 families actually gave input on this design of the memorial. So it's a very emotional, very personal thing. It's just as much for you as it is for our NASA family. The NASA family, we are going back to the moon. In a year or 2, we will have astronauts circling that beautiful moon that we have in the sky. And a year or 2 after that, we're going to be landing again. So here we go again, you know. Get excited about it. Project Artemis will be here for you whenever you come back to check up on the progress. I'll be here for questions. If you have any questions, again, my name's Kurt. And thanks for the privilege of showing you this moon rocket. Have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
Oh, by the way, there's a moon rock in that little glass case that you can actually touch, by the way. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Got a second stage here, and this is a
It's one step on one side.
Racing their Corvettes. use the environmental control system doing projects for themselves. This does. The funny thing, after we docked and joined up, manually took out all of the hatches and the docking globes and things, and he looks in, he sees all of this dust, and he said, you can't come in here until you clean up. So he floats over a vacuum cleaner, a little teeny handheld one, and we closed the hatch again. And so we vacuumed up all this dust the best.
Choose one. Reino, Rover. Look, Rain, Rover, Mars. Wow. $239,500 miles.
All stations verified. Ready to resume count. LVTC. Launch vehicles. STC. Spacecraft is go. GSTC. Ground systems are go. LPS.
LPS is go.
Flight. SNA. Mission assurance is go. LPE.
LPE is go.
RTE.
Recovery forces are go.
RSO.
RSO is go.
TDR.
DDR is go.
GLS.
We're go.
CDR.
So
Attention all
let's
stations.
This is the launch director. We are go for launch.
Our presentation will be on stage shortly. We're listening for a countdown clock that lets us know that we have 3 minutes to the launch of the show. Now, while we're waiting for the show, let's go through some of these questions and answers we have up on the screen. Let's see what the next one is. There's our 3-minute clock. If you weighed 100 pounds on Earth, how much would you weigh on Mars? 38 pounds, yes. Beats the heck out of the Slim Fast method, doesn't it? That's because there's a little over 1/3 the amount of gravity on Mars that there is on the Earth. Gravity is created by the mass, density, and radius of an object. It's not just how big the planet is, but what it's made up of, the different properties for each planet. Several different factors going into effect for creating the gravity. How many Earth days does it take for Mars to travel around the Sun? 49.5 million miles further out from the Sun than we are, so it takes 687 days, almost twice what it takes the Earth. Now, that means that if you're living on Mars, you only get to celebrate a birthday there every 2 years, as opposed to every year on the Earth. At that rate, I'd be so much younger, I'm okay with that. Is Mars larger, smaller, or the same size as the Earth? It is smaller, a little over 1/3 the size of the Earth, but it has the highest mountain, the longest valley, and the biggest volcanoes of anywhere in our solar system. There's a mountain on Mars that is 3.5 times higher than Mount Everest. The valley is wider and deeper than the Grand Canyon, and on the Earth, it would reach from New York City to Los Angeles, California. Can you breathe the air on Mars? No, it's carbon dioxide. It's not very good for you. But at least the carbon dioxide on Mars won't kill you, because there's 100 times more atmosphere on the Earth than there is on Mars. Your body regulates your air pressure and blood pressure to match the Earth. If you take off your helmet or your spacesuit on Mars to breathe the air,
You're happy
you'll
with
have
Mars?
so much
Happy?
more air
Yeah.
pressure and blood pressure inside your body than outside. Within about 10 seconds, you expand and pop like a balloon. It's not very good for you either. Why is Mars red? Iron in the soil. The planet is actually a very dark gray planet because there's so much iron content there. But there's a thick coat of iron dust across the entire planet that has oxidized. It turned to rust. That's what gives the planet that orange-reddish color. And one of the ways that we know that there was water and oxygen up there. Now we're getting ready to watch the launch of the SLS, the Space Launch System. This is the newest rocket built by NASA to take us back to the moon and further out to our exploration of Mars with the Artemis program. Our first launch will be landing off of the coast of San Diego. They have a big screen TV on the other side of the Atlantis, so you can watch it if you want to go out there. Space exploration looks pretty good, doesn't it? But it's not just about cool rockets and high-tech gadgets. It's about people. And it's one of the great adventures of all time. Welcome to Explorers Wanted. Here you can see what's happening at NASA today and get a feel for what it takes to have a career in space exploration. Now, plans are already underway for humankind's next leap off the planet. You're invited to be a part of that. We have a lot to get done, but not a lot of time, and we have to get you ready. So if you're going to start a journey, then you need to know where you're going, right? Fortunately, NASA has selected 4 possible destinations. First, there's the International Space Station. Did you realize that humans have consistently lived and worked aboard the ISS for 22 years? You're going to be making a lot of trips to and from this orbiting space laboratory for many years to come. Next is our closest celestial neighbor, the moon. The last time we were there was 1972, and there's still so much left to explore. You might want to visit an asteroid. How cool would something like that be? And then there's Mars. We have our robots there scoping things out. Which of these destinations do you feel most closely lives up to NASA's mission of space exploration and discovery? Any ideas? Let's take a look and find out. We're going to Mars. Now imagine standing on the red planet, millions and millions of miles away from the Earth, looking up into the sky to see a tiny blue speck where you were born. Before you can experience this moment, you'll have to answer 3 questions. Can you survive the long trip to Mars? How will you live on the surface of that planet? And can you return to Earth safely? That sounds pretty difficult, doesn't it? In fact, these are some of the most complex problems that humankind has ever had to tackle. And NASA can't do this alone. We're going to need your help. The trip to Mars is long and dangerous, so we're not going to make it in one giant leap. We have to start with smaller steps first. These other destinations will serve as a proving grounds to solving the challenges you'll face. Aboard the ISS, astronauts are conducting groundbreaking research to pave the way for the journey, and plans are in the works to redirect a nearby asteroid into orbit around our moon. You're going to use that asteroid to perfect the capabilities for your Mars mission. You might even find clues to the formation of our solar system there. Now, meanwhile, the moon will act as a perfect dress rehearsal for Mars. They both have far less gravity than the Earth, and they're both freezing. So now you know where you're going. We need to figure out how to make that happen. Let's bring up Mars again. We'll hold it there. The launching point to Mars is here at the Kennedy Space Center. Now, from space, we get a much better idea of just how fragile and special our little planet really is. By exploring Mars, we might better understand our own home, our past, and our possible future. But before we can push beyond the boundaries of planet Earth, we have to push beyond the boundaries of our current science and technology. Microgravity is punishing on the human body. Your bones thin, your muscles shrink, your immune system weakens. We have to figure out how to keep you healthy on that trip. And even with our more powerful new rockets, you can't take everything with you. You live off the land. Back to basics, learning to grow food, make water, build shelters. On the Earth, we take for granted the abundant natural resources that sustain life. But on Mars, you have to conserve and reuse everything. And I mean everything. Now, all of these things are being done to help us get to Mars. But human space exploration isn't just about pushing the boundaries of science and technology. No, it fulfills a deep need to understand our world and to explore the nature and meaning of human life. Pretty awesome. Let's see what NASA's doing today to help us get there. Wow, nice choices. Let's start here. Put that one under 1. That will go to 2. This goes to 3, to 4. And I like this one. You're here today during one of the most exciting times in NASA's history. Since retiring the Space Shuttle program in 2011, NASA has been transferring low Earth orbit spaceflight to the private sector through a program called Commercial Resupply Services. Two companies, Northrop Grumman and SpaceX, have been conducting resupply missions to the ISS, carrying food, supplies, scientific equipment. It keeps the station running and allows the astronauts to explore. The program is highly successful. But it's just the beginning. Because with NASA's Commercial Crew Program, SpaceX has launched the first astronauts from U.S. soil in almost 10 years. Boeing will be next flying to the ISS with a goal of achieving safe, reliable, and cost-effective access to and from low Earth orbit and the International Space Station. 100 years ago, there were no airlines. But just a few decades and millions of people were traveling by air. Many of you probably came here on an airline and never gave it a second thought, right? Well, over the next couple of decades, commercial space transportation has the power to transform our world in ways not seen since the dawn of aviation, over a century ago. Now, one thing is certain. It's going to take creative thinkers and problem solvers like you to help us on this incredible journey through space. So now that you've been briefed, you're ready to become part of the future of space exploration. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to work at NASA? Well, whether you're flying the mission or whether you're supporting it from here on the ground, it takes a special kind of person. Someone who's willing to embrace and deal with these kinds of risks and challenges. Maybe somebody like you.
We don't know what the universe is made of. We don't know where the limits of the universe are. We don't know what dark matter is.
Nope.
We don't know.
Is it all figured out? No, it's not all figured out. It's never all figured out.
You.
That's
all.
why it's so exciting.
Just so much, and we know so little about it. Why should we explore space when we have so many problems here on Earth?
People ask me this question all the time.
We don't take a rocket and fill it with dollars and blast it into outer space. Every dollar we spend is spent here on Earth. And that makes for a better economy.
Makes life better right here on Earth.
Amazing things have happened because of our space exploration. Cell phones,
Solar panels,
environmental monitoring,
artificial limbs,
Communications.
pharmaceuticals, computer technology.
Solutions to problems here on Earth.
Just imagine what else will come.
So many more inventions and discoveries that we will use in our daily lives. You only learn by really going out there and pushing the boundaries.
Exactly.
We don't know what's going to happen in the future.
What happened to Mars?
Mars once had an environment similar to Earth.
it has a Grand Canyon, the equivalent of Los Angeles to New York. So there was plenty of water on Mars in the past.
Where did it go? What happened?
How did Mars become a wasteland?
Could it happen here on Earth?
How can we as a species survive?
Could you bring Mars back to life?
We could learn by going off the planet and potentially bring those lessons back.
We learn more about what our eventual future may be.
What if an asteroid is coming towards Earth?
It could wipe out civilization as we know it.
What if we haven't developed a way to stop it? We'd have to sit back and watch it happen.
That will be a disaster. As a people, we would have failed.
We can sit here and do nothing. But did the caveman sit in his cave and do nothing? Or did the caveman look out at the hill and say, I wonder what's over that hill?
When you're part of a NASA team, you have to develop new technologies and solve problems that no one else has ever solved. You need to figure out how to get hundreds of thousands of pounds of equipment to space.
You understand?
How long can humans survive on the surface before ill effects?
We don't know right now how to keep food preserved long enough for the trip. So we'll need people to solve that problem.
This is going to be hard, harder than anything anyone has ever done.
Right now, I have no idea how we're going to do that, but we will.
Yes.
And while you're doing all this, you might answer questions like, is there life out there?
Are we alone?
Are we alone? Are we alone?
The greatest discoveries are yet to come.
But if you want to be involved in something big, I mean something really big, where you can say you are part of the next step of human evolution, that's what exploring space is all about.
You can stay in the cave if you want to. But you can take a risk and you can walk over the hill and who knows what you'll find.
Look around. You know, the first person to stand on Mars could be in this audience today. Because today's young people are the heart and soul of the future NASA. You are the ones that are going to lead us to our new frontiers and beyond. Because you are tomorrow's explorers.
Yes, you hear that? You hear that one?
All stations verified. Ready to resume count and go for launch. LVTC.
Launch vehicles go.
STC.
Spacecraft is go.
GSTC.
Ground systems are go.
LPS.
LPS is go.
Flight.
Flight is go.
SMA.
Mission assurance is go.
LPE.
LP is go.
RTD.
Recovery forces are go.
RSO.
RSO's go. Give a range clear to launch.
TDR.
DDR is go.
GLS.
We're go.
CDR.
Flight crew is go.
Attention all stations.
This is the launch director. We are go for launch. 8, 7, 6. Ignition sequence starts. 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff.
On behalf of NASA and the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, I'd like to thank you for joining us. My name is Ken, and I hope you have a great day with us at the Kennedy Space Center. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yay. Thank you.
Theme park where everything just runs on the same schedule every day. There's always different things going on. And as we make our way along, I'm going to run videos on the way up, but I'll also point out a thing or two as we make our way up there. There's a couple things. Got the crawler sitting out in front of the VAB, so that's pretty neat to see that. Point that out.
Place amongst the stars since the dawn of humankind. We've looked at the stars with wonder and amazement. Their glow guiding our travel for centuries. The more we learn about our universe, the more questions we have.
I'm Emily Calandrelli, and today you'll be following me behind the gates on this exclusive bus tour of Kennedy Space Center. Our journey will take us past active facilities and end at the visitor complex's own Apollo Saturn V Center.
But before we begin this journey, just like every NASA mission, our #1 goal is to return home safely. So always stay seated while the bus is in motion. Please, no food or drinks on the bus.
This rocket that you'll see standing tall in front of KSC's badging station is the Mercury Redstone rocket. It represents NASA's earliest efforts to send humans into space. These Redstone rockets were formerly ballistic missiles provided to NASA by the U.S. Army.
Astronauts have ventured forth on flights of exploration since the 1960s. And what an exciting time to visit our multi-user spaceport. Through our Commercial Crew program, we are sending astronauts to the International Space Station from American soil for the first time since the Space Shuttle program ended in 2011. We're continuing to launch new research experiments and supplies to the space station with our commercial resupply services and launching the most technologically advanced science.
Was assembled right here. Every space shuttle mission also assembled within these same walls. After the space shuttle program, a major renovation to the inside of this building began to accommodate NASA's next generation of rockets, the Space Launch System, or SLS. Lockheed Martin has developed a capsule called Orion that will sit atop the SLS rocket. This capsule is designed to facilitate human exploration of the moon and eventually Mars.
I would imagine that they are going to SpaceX with that, to their Hangar X. That or over to Blue Origin.
So cool.
Determine if the flight and the ground systems
see that?
go
You see
or
that?
no go.
9 industrial area. You'll get a better look at our world's largest one-story building, the Vehicle Assembly Building. And that building has been known to produce its own atmosphere inside, as the sheer volume and the inside interior space, when you take that hot tippy top of the rocket, and that's in place in case they need to separate the crew capsule away from the rocket upon takeoff. If there's any kind of mishap or anything they need to put that in place, then a couple motors kick in and it separates that crew capsule away from the rocket. And then I'll point out on the right side of the bus by the American flag is our new countdown clock. It looks like a flat screen TV sitting over there, and are used for many decades, very famous incandescent bulb countdown clock. They retired it, and it's there at the front door, front entrance when y'all came in earlier today. And then I'll point out a launch complex sitting across the water, off in the distance. That's over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. That's Launch Complex 40. That is SpaceX's launch complex now. They launched from there last night in the wee hours of the morning. Yesterday the rocket was on the pad, but now all you see is the lightning mitigation towers. And that's an old Titan complex. And I'm going to take you right across the crawlerway itself, the video. That's also known as the brain or the Nerve Center out here at Kennedy Space Center. And so far they've launched 54 launches from there just this year.
Here to meet Cliff Lannan.
Right in this space here on the left side of the bus, in the area the workers call the crawler pen. So Crawler Transporter 2 will be there, and I'll point out Crawler Transporter 1. It's on the left side of the bus, kind of tucked in between those buildings. They're not using that one right now as they are need to retrofit it, upgrade it to accommodate our current rockets that we're using. But there it is, and also for any baseball fans on the bus, the platform on that Crawler Transporters is as large as a baseball diamond.
No!
How many people?
No!
Forth to the pad. We will begin by going underneath the mobile launcher. We'll pick it up, we'll take it over to the VAB. They'll then assemble the launch vehicle on top of the mobile launcher, and then we'll come back to the VAB. We'll slide underneath it again, we'll pick it up, we'll take it out to the pad. The trip of about 4.2 miles. It'll take us about 7 hours to get there. But during our trip to the launch pad, we'll roll over a specially prepared crawler weight that consists of anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of special rock. Below that is limestone that's about 4 feet thick and compressed to hold the weight of the crawler and the mobile launcher. And then below that is some hydraulically compacted sand that can support all the weight. And then once we're there, we'll drop it all off. And then a few days later, there'll be a launch. We'll come back, we'll pick the mobile launcher up, and we'll bring it back to the VAB to start the process all over again.
With 50 years and some 3,000 kilometers or 2,000 miles on the clock, NASA expects the crawlers to be in operation for at least another 3 decades. How cool is that? The latest refurbishment is complete, and preparation is well underway for the first SLS mission. The crawler will be doing what it was originally designed to do once again, which is moving rockets.
Why 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
When President John F. Kennedy made this speech in 1962, he set in motion an era of discovery that would change humankind forever. 7 years after he spoke these ambitious words, the world watched as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first people to walk on the moon. The achievements of the men and women who worked on the space program in these early decades of NASA helped propel the technology we use every day. NASA and the thriving private space industry at Kennedy Space Center today are the living legacy of their story. As we arrive at the Apollo Saturn V Center to learn more about that historic era, get ready to step back into a time when NASA had everything to prove to a nation focused on one goal: to be the first country to land a person on the moon.
Thank you. Thank you to astronaut. Rain, let's go there. There.
Guests and hearing impaired guests, please use the door to your far left.
Sit there. Okay. Sit there.
Please watch your step and use the handrail on the stairs. Continue moving forward in order to make room for the guests entering behind you. Guests with special physical needs, including wheelchairs and hearing disabilities, please be seated in the front row.
Yes. We're here. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Fly to the moon. The tragedy of Apollo 1 had put us a year and a half behind. We were making up for it in one big leap, and we were doing it with a rocket that no man had ever flown before. Christmas 1968, when Apollo 8 sat on the pad. She was the first of a new kind, a moon rocket. This was the Phoenix, risen from the ashes of Apollo 1. The first Apollo crew did not die in vain. This was to be their testament. "36 stories high, she had been fully fueled throughout the night. The liquid oxygen in her tanks caused ice to form on the outside of the craft. The extreme temperature differences between the air and the sub-zero fuel caused the metals. As the clock counted down, the astronauts and all of us in launch control went through the pre-flight checks. Our hands on the controls of the most powerful, most complex machine ever built. It had over 2 million separate systems. And to bring these men back alive, everything had to work perfectly.
During this period, once we do get the final command, the various tanks within the 3 stages of the Saturn V launch.
8, 9, 10.
Coming up on 90 seconds, mark, T-minus 90 seconds incoming. The Apollo 8 crew standing by, spacecraft commander Frank Warner, Jim Muller, Bill Andrews. We now report that the liquid hydrogen tank in the 3rd stage is pressurized, 1 minute 15 seconds. All 3rd stage propellants pressurized at this time as we come up on the 60-second mark on the flight to the moon. T-minus 60 seconds and counting. The vehicle now is completely pressurized.
Apollo 8 successfully orbited the moon. The astronauts returned safely to the Earth. I know. I'm Jim Muller. I was one of the crew of this spacecraft, Apollo 8. We were the first men to see the surface of the moon from just a few miles away. But it was the hundreds of thousands of men and women who worked in that team and the millions of people who supported the mission that really made it possible. That way, I guess, we all went to the moon. Now, on the other side of those doors, you'll find an action.
Oh. It's the constellations. Constellations. Whoa! International Space. Mali. Rain! Rain! Let's go! Wow!
Daddy, let's go.
Where? Sabi ni Rain, here's another one. Matanda na talaga tong birthday boy. Bilisan mo yung model mo, ano na. Rain, Pogi. Rain, rain, rain. Rain. Rain here. Look, the orange one. Let's go. Orange. Rain. Wow. Astronaut training experience. Pwede. So sabi Mars has 2 moons, Phobos and Deimos. Thank you. Mm. Mahal, Shane. Shane.
For your safety, please stay off the stage.
Rain. Rain. Just sit here. Let's watch. Oh, Rain, look, look. Robot, robot, go, go. Go, robot, robot. Go, robot. Go to robot. Rain, let's go, let's go, let's go. Let's go, robot. Rain, let's go. Rain. Are you real?
I wonder if you can talk. Is that what AI is? That's a person in there. I think I can talk.
Hi, what's your name?
It's called Robonaut.
Robonaut. Oh. Let's go.
Is that like an actual robot? Or is there a person?
A robotic astronaut. They actually have one of these on the space station.
Mm.
So there's not a person in here.
We call it Robonaut.
Robonaut. Whoa. High five.
Yay!
High five.
Dude, that is so cool.
Yay, thank you. Thank you, Robonaut. Thanks, Robonaut.
Look! What? We were just talking about robots. Remember?
Robonaut, everybody. Thank you. This is it, Robonaut. Robonaut.
pushes. Okay? So if I have a bed sheet
In a quarter
and I put a
mile, use the
ball,
right
a
two
very
lanes to
heavy
take the